What's up guys, and I'm back with the second video on Sandrone. Make sure to check out my other video for the full guide because this video is more of a specific question. So one of the coolest things about this patch and Sandrone is the buffs to a bunch of old characters. And I think they did that because we've never really had superconduct teams before, except for physical, which doesn't really count. So because of that, they had to give very good superconduct kits to a wide variety of old characters in order to make these teams for Sandrone coherent. Now, will they add future characters for Sandrone? Possibly, but the supports that we do have are very good. However, one issue is that we didn't really get many off-field Electro options. There's basically only two, which is Beidou and Yae Miko. Beidou is a 4-star, but Yae Miko is a limited 5-star. Whereas if you look at Cryo, there are a lot more Cryo options. You've got Chi-Chi, Escoffier, Diona, and a lot of people have Diona or Chi-Chi. But it's Electro that's the issue. And the cool thing is, Yae Miko and Beidou have very good synergy together, so you can play them together, but your issue could be if you only have one. Most likely if you only have Beidou. The thing with Yae Miko is that she's a very old character, released back in Inazuma, and she was decently popular, but definitely not very popular, at least compared to other Inazuma characters like Raiden or Ayaka or Yelan. It's not unreasonable to say so many people won't have her. So overall, you are probably wondering if, in a practical sense, you are screwed if you are pulling Sandrone and you don't have Yae Miko. I'd say there's two main differences between Yae Miko and Beidou aside from the rarity. First is how they deal their off-field Electro, which is very important. Yae Miko only needs her skill to get that going. And you basically get permanent uptime in every situation. Whereas Beidou requires a lot of energy for her burst, even though they did buff her in regards to energy issues. In the Abyss or events where you start with full energy, that's not going to be a problem. You're always going to start off with Beidou's burst from the get-go. But in Stygian Onslaught, where you have to start from scratch, if Beidou is your only Electro, you're going to have poor stellar conduct uptime until you can get her burst. Second difference is their focus. Yae Miko's changes are focused mostly on her sub DPS. She got significant buffs and doesn't just deal good raw damage now, but also good stellar conduct direct damage. Now her sub DPS, even when played alongside a modern main DPS like Sandrone, is very relevant. However, without constellations, she isn't really bringing buffs to Sandrone. However, Beidou on the other hand, I thought I missed something initially, but she doesn't actually deal direct stellar conduct damage now. So her damage is still pretty whatever, especially in single target, but her buffs are mainly focused on quality of life around helping her generate energy with her improved counter. But most importantly, her C6 doesn't just give Electro Res Shred now, it gives significant buffs for Sandrone, Cryo Res Shred and EM. And this is great because buffing your carry scales very well with investment. I really like these changes overall. So back to the question, how much worse is it if you don't have Yae Miko? Well, I played a lot of Stygian and Abyss. I am doing Fearless difficulty, but for context, Dire, which is the max difficulty, is usually twice as hard as Fearless. So if we are able to clear around 60 seconds, then the team probably could clear Dire within the 120-second requirement. So I got two sets of gameplay with Yae Miko. First of all was as a solo Electro, and second of all, I played her with Beidou. Both teams are very good because Beidou and Diona are quite similar now. Both of them give a shield and interrupt resistance, and both of them give a lot of buffs for Sandrone. This boss does go down very quickly with both teams. I really think both teams are very viable. You can see just how hard Sandrone's burst hits when you build her correctly. I am using C1 Yae Miko here, but I'm also using the Wind Sith. So the investment isn't perfect. Let's see this burst hit. 400k just before the shield went back up. And yeah, Sandrone's range is so good, you can just destroy these adds very quickly. And then the boss just takes self damage and deletes itself. Now, technically, my Beidou clear was even faster than Diona. It's not that big of a difference though, but I did get this first try. Like I said, Beidou is very similar to Diona. So if you are trying to decide between these two different teams. You can play either, depending on what you like. Dino's shield is going to be better than Beidou's. Beidou's shield, you do need the C1. Doesn't scale that well. But Beidou's also very cool. So you can pick whichever you want. The damage is stonks either way. Both of them give 200 EM to Sandrone. Look at that, 700k burst hits. Very nice. And just like the other team, the boss will deal self damage once you just break these ads again. So both teams getting under 60-second clears. So factoring in, I have got high ping here and these characters are not fully built. Both teams could quite easily do dire. Now here's the thing, what if you don't have Yae Miko? And the issue is, even though they did buff Beidou's energy generation, she's still Beidou. Like, trying to generate energy from scratch is still tragic. And you're gonna have to spend a lot of time. Look, I was just struggling to play as a Solo Electro. But if you want to play the Superconduct teammates, which provide a lot of buffs, you kind of have to play Beidou Solo Electro. But you can see it doesn't really work. So I do deal quite good damage here during the uptime. These hits are very respectable. But look, when I go back to Beidou, whoa. Energy's awful again. That's a problem. And I have like over 200 ER with the Fab Greatsword here. So scrap that gameplay. I was curious. You know, I think Beidou is very good, but the energy is an issue. What if I replace one of the Superconduct supports with Fischl? Pretty much just to help Beidou with her energy. And maybe, I guess, provide a little bit of off-field Electro. But Fischl doesn't really do much aside from that. And as you see, Sandrone's max hits do go a bit down because I did lose a good buffer. Fischl's not a good buffer in these teams. But Beidou getting her burst is not quite as awful. Still getting big hits on Sandrone. And the thing here is just about showing you, if Beidou was a bit more playable, look at that energy generation. If Beidou was a little bit more playable, how good is she if you don't have burst issues? And as you can see, it's not going to be as good as the Yae Miko team, obviously. We're crossing 70 seconds here. But even with one passenger in the team like Fischl, we've got sub 80-second clear. And that is basically a 2-cost Sandrone team. That is not even a real team. So what I learned from that is, yeah, that team, if you double the HP, it's not going to be able to do dire. But it shows that Beidou is so strong. The biggest problem is not really about damage. It's just about, if you don't have Yae Miko, Beidou's off-field Electro is just not reliable at all. And she would be so strong if you could get those off-field Stormbreaker hits with just her skill. I could probably play Fischl here or Raiden. I would still get a very respectable Fearless clear. Obviously, me using C1 Yae Miko, she does give a pretty decent buff. Not quite as good as some of the other characters, but this does add up. So Yae Miko is adding a lot of DPS, but it's not an insane amount, because ultimately if you're doing endgame content, top DPS damage doesn't scale quite as well as investing very well into your main DPS. So if you have things like Sandrone's weapon, a lot of the other superconduct supports are providing a lot of value, which does help make up for losing Yae Miko's very good damage. It's just that Yae Miko, if you want her damage and her buffs, it does require constellations. I wouldn't be surprised if you don't even need Yae Miko C1 to clear Dire. So about Yae Miko, what have I learned? How important do I think Yae Miko is? I would say she's going to be important for Stygian Onslaught Dire. I don't think Dire will be possible with just Beidou as your Electro. The damage is slightly lower, but more importantly, it just takes too long to get Beidou's burst. And if you pay another Electro to help Beidou get her burst back, then you're losing out on buffs from another superconduct support. Secondly, I think Yae Miko is important because she is available in the Constellation event, which can make her even stronger. Whether that's you getting her C1 or her C2, these are very big buffs. And if the Constellation event resets next year, you could potentially look at getting 2 copies of Yae Miko for free from the event. There is a chance in a few months you can jump all the way from a C0 Yae Miko to a C2 and you get these big buffs. Having these extra avenues for vertical investment does give an opportunity for extra longevity to Sandrone in this way, which I think is very nice. And I think this point is very important because the Constellation event has been going on for a while now, and I found it quite easy to run out of characters you truly want to pick. After all, there aren't that many characters that got buffed. It's quite easily for you to start picking random characters. So rather than wasting it, if you have a Yae Miko, you can get a big upgrade instead. And also another thing I've considered is you could point to Varka and Venti, how Venti was a buffed character, but in Varka teams, he still ended up ultimately getting replaced by Prune. So it is possible Yae Miko can get replaced in the future, but I think it's easily possible she doesn't. One reason, like we were just talking about with the Constellation event, unlike Venti, Yae Miko is available in that Constellation event. That gives you an extra avenue to make her stronger at a baseline. Plus, you have to consider Varka teams. His teams have restricted compositions. You have to play 2 Animos and 2 Pyros, which means if they wanted to release a new character for Varka, if it's an Animo character, you have to replace Venti. Venti would always be compared. Whereas if we get Stellar Conduct teammates, you still have 2 more slots here. Whether we get Stellar Conduct Cryo options or Electro options, you still have 2 more slots here where you could easily slot a new character into these 2 positions instead. I don't want to play Future Impact too much, but if you're a Yae Miko fan, I feel like it's easily as likely for her to be one of the last teammates to get replaced, even if that does happen, because like I said earlier in the video, all of these Stellar Conduct characters got very solid buffs and there's quite a lot of interchangeability going on. A well-invested Yae Miko, it has a very good chance of having real staying power in your Sandrone team. Ultimately, I could argue I think it's worth considering getting Yae Miko if you don't already have her. She is rerunning next patch at the same time as Sandrone. You can always wait a week to test. You can maybe try Stygian, try endgame, and decide if you want to invest further into your teams. Depending on how strong you need your team to be, I don't think she's necessary, but the quality of life by having Yae Miko and her damage is very good. And to be fair, I think there's a lot of fans of Yae Miko who would be happy that she is very good. So if that's a reason for you to consider pulling her, then I would consider it. Just don't feel like you have to. You might not have enough pulls for both Sandrone and Yae Miko, and ideally Sandrone's weapon as well. Hopefully you guys found this video helpful. Again, make sure to check out my 40-minute video, I think it is, as well, if you want to see more detailed look into Sandrone. Thanks for watching and good luck on your pulls.